I suddenly wake up and I can't move. I have this terrible feeling that something's wrong. I try and lift my arm, but I can't. It even feels like there's this heavy weight on my chest. I feel panicked. I try and call out for someone to help me. I'm frozen. No sound comes from my mouth. I try to move. I try to roll. Nothing. It almost feels like I'm being held down on the bed. I try to call out again. No sound. I try and lift my hand. I try and lift my hand with every force in my life will. I try and lift it and nothing happens. I'm terrified, I'm scared, and I'm lying there wondering what's happened to me. Everything feels so disorientated. The world is spinning, and I'm afraid that something is happening to me on a soul level. Hi guys, it's a very intense opening, but I thought I'd start just by explaining what it used to feel like for me and for a lot of people around the world that have what we call sleep paralysis. My name's Nathan Raaths, and I'm coming to you from Cape Town in South Africa. The reason I decided to make this video this evening is, well, I was actually online this morning, and a young lady in one of the big out-of-body travel groups, what people call astral traveling, she made a desperate plea in the group saying that she was 13 years old and she was having sleep paralysis and that she was really, really scared and she wanted some help. And I started to type her this long reply. And after that, I thought, you know, when I was younger, wow, this had such a massive impact on my life. It actually affected myself quite deeply. And I thought, you know what, let me make a video about that. So we're going to be talking about sleep paralysis, and I'm hoping that it will help you in some way. It's a magnificent subject, and it's a very misunderstood subject, very steeped in superstition and negative beliefs. And I think that when I think about information that can really free and help us, I think about the fact that every single person will probably experience it once in their life. And some people like myself, 25% of people apparently regularly. If we can bring some peace to them, or even the spiritual doorway that it holds, then I'd feel really good about that. When I was about 14 years old, I had a friend who was crying under one of the stairwells one day, and I asked her what was going on, and she essentially told me that at the church they were doing prayers and exorcisms on her. She was terrified, and the reason is because she started having sleep paralysis, and she was describing it to her priest, and she was basically, you know, told that something really negative is happening to you. So I suggested to her that maybe there was something else going on. I was very, very lucky because as a young man, well, lucky, not in the beginning, I was absolutely terrified because I used to wake up quite often outside of my body, which nothing in my belief system could fit in or help, and often used to wake up in sleep paralysis. And I was very lucky to come across a few very random books on Buddhism at that age, and they really, really helped me, and I managed to suss it out. And to be honest, I had a lot of very fearful moments. So I suggested to her what it could be. And what's absolutely amazing is that I found out recently that she lives in another city, and she actually, just like me, helps people and runs workshops on teaching people how to consciously leave their bodies and travel into other worlds and dimensions. And how magnificent that I could have had that small little moment with a person and made a difference like that. So I hope this is a little bit helpful to you. The first thing I want to do is, let's just establish, if you're a little bit unsure, you might never have had sleep paralysis, but I'm assuming a large portion of people that have clicked on this and have decided to actually watch this, some of you have been very negatively impacted. So what essentially is sleep paralysis? From a scientific perspective, I can tell you that the jury's kind of out. There are a lot of theories about experiences that you get during the theta states and when you're in REM sleep states, but no one really knows. But when you look into the spiritual world, and I would say hundreds and thousands of people around the world that experience it on a regular, let's call it a regular event in their lives, most people will tell you that They know what it is. So let me share with you what it is that I think is going on there. Sleep paralysis essentially is your body locking down at night as your body falls asleep so that you may go and travel and you may go and explore and you may go into other worlds and realities and dimensions. And if you would imagine your body not locking down before you were to leave, then what would happen is you'd end up getting up and walking around the house when you go and explore. So this is a mechanism that is inbuilt in every human being. Some people, as you know, have dysfunctional mechanisms and they go walking around while they're asleep. So the really, really, I would say, warming thing and exciting thing is to realize that sleep paralysis actually happens to every single person in the world every single night. And the reason why I say that so clearly is because the one thing about sleep paralysis is, as I mentioned, it's so shrouded in fear. And if you just understand that what you've come across is one of the most natural processes in the world, but that is also, if you're willing to dive into it just for a few minutes with me, a possible doorway for you to completely open up spiritual dimensions that you didn't even know existed, or perhaps knew and thought were beyond your range of possibility. How incredible. So, essentially what I'm saying is, when you go to bed at night, your mind falls asleep and so does your body. And what happens is, your mind tends to fall asleep just before your body does. And then your body locks down and some people call it etheric, your astral, your soul, your non-physical self goes exploring. And who knows where it goes? I'm not going to get into that in this video. And I also want to just make a point here of pointing out that it's really important that you don't allow yourself to get trapped in my belief system. So for instance, if the idea of me saying to you that you go into other dimensions and worlds, if that kind of makes you uncomfortable, then you really don't need that for this video to be of any value to you. If it's just the case that you want to learn how to cope with this or perhaps take it away, then this will help. And if you're at the stage where you're starting to unlock this already, there will be aspects for you as well. So when you begin to lock down, sometimes what happens by accident is that your mind is still awake when your body falls asleep and your body begins to lock down. And suddenly, if you can imagine, almost like being trapped inside a vessel that doesn't want to work anymore. And of course, because you are changing dimensions, almost going through, if you can imagine, an eye of a needle or a doorway slowly opening for you to step from the physical world to the non-physical world. If you can imagine being fully awake during that experience, it is absolutely terrifying. And most people will actually say that they carry psychological scars and wounds from this. And that is why it is a subject that's so close to my heart, because when you see what it actually is, oh, what an exciting thing. So by accident, you could also be coming back to your body. And as you're coming back to your body, your mind becomes alert before your body is back online, and suddenly you are trapped inside your body, almost trying to call out. And there's quite a lot of adrenaline involved in this whole process, and there's a little bit of a psychedelic unreality feel to it. So people trend to project very powerful subconscious fears and beliefs. And to be quite honest with you, in the 20 years that I've been working and teaching this kind of stuff, there are certain religions and belief systems that are far more susceptible to building fear narratives around what it is that's going on here. So I suppose the real question that you have to ask yourself is then, why do some people do this on purpose? There's a lot of shamanic training and different types of training that you can do where we learn to invoke the state on purpose. Well, it's simple. Because if you think about it, why I look so excited when I talk about this is sleep paralysis is a doorway between the physical and the non-physical worlds. 1/3 of your life, although some people, I would say even half of your life, is spent as a blur, unconscious, in the black, We have no idea what it is that happens. So there's only two possibilities. The one is, well, all that happens when you sleep is that you just switch off and you remain inside your body and nothing happens. And you have neurons firing, and that's what a dream is. And there's the other possibility, which is the one I lean so forward into, and that is that when you are essentially sleeping, you are off on this adventure. So why would we do it on purpose? It is, like I said, the physical and the non-physical worlds. Would you not like to know what is going on during the time when you are in your sleep state? There are even exercises that we can do where we start bringing the memory of what's happening inside the dream state. It's incredible, almost making yourself conscious on both sides of the veil. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We're going to focus on what we're talking about being having sleep paralysis. I've had this experience, or it's going to happen to me again. Maybe you're scared, maybe you're excited. So the big question that everyone wants me to get to is, well, is it dangerous? That's the first thing. Well, I want you to consider that every single person on the planet this evening, when they go to bed, is going to have their body go into sleep paralysis. Some people will be aware of it and some people won't. The people that have a really scary experience or have sometimes, I guess you could say, even a little bit of non-physical reality experience with other consciousness, well, they could have a fright and they could have a jarring experience. But the only difference really is the psychological experience of what has happened to you. So essentially, the history of the world and all the human beings that exist show us that it is not just not dangerous. It is, if anything, it is something that can bring deep value in your life. So I assure you it's perfectly safe. There's a thing that I always say to myself when I explore with something new or open up a new ability is, I have always existed. I always will exist. What could ever happen to me? And that's not something I just tell myself. You know, once you've experienced yourself outside of your body, and I hope that this video inspires you to take it further and even not just remove this from your life, but to use this doorway. I cannot explain to you how different it is to theorize that you are not your body and to theorize that there are other realities and to fully conscious go into a meditation or a sleep position and to go and explore them fully awake. You are forever changed. You no longer need a belief system, or you don't need, I guess the word is faith that it exists, because you experience it. And therefore, once you know that you are eternal, because you're not your body, well, it brings quite a lot of courage into every aspect of your life. So what I would actually suggest is, first of all, now that we've established that this is perfectly safe, is, I guess the question would be, let's assume, first of all, that you're having a very difficult experience. Nathan, I'm really battling, give me some advice. First thing I'll tell you is to approach your belief system, which is really important, which is why I've been speaking so intricately just about the background of it. Do you know, in the Middle Ages, there is actually pieces of artwork. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard the term hag, which was another term for a witch. There's a term called hagging, which there are even paintings of where there's things kind of sitting on people's chests, holding them down while they sleep. And the reason for that is because if you've ever woken up in sleep paralysis, or if you've ever purposely brought it up on yourself, it involves pressure on the chest and a feeling of being held into the bed. And that's naturally just because the body's locking down. So you can imagine, if you are in an environment where people are very fearful and full of superstition, or a narrative that has a lot of negative fear beliefs, people literally started to share this belief system and this culture that there was things that would travel and hold you down in your bed. And as I said, to the point where it even inspired artwork. So what is it that you can do? The first thing is realize that you're completely safe, that it happens to every person in the world. The second thing, and this is really powerful, the more you fight it, the stronger it gets. Now, I want to tell you why. What you're essentially experiencing when you're trying to sit up from your dream or get up off the bed is you are fighting your own energy, your own force, your own life force, your etheric energy. It's kind of like saying, if you push against the wall, the harder that you push, the harder the wall will push back, in case you could call that physics. Your body is being locked down by yourself, and at the same time, there's a little part of you that you identify with very strongly, which is your mental thought body, that is fighting against everything else that your soul, or whatever you want to call it, is doing. So you're actually in a fight with your own willpower. So the more you try and sit up, the more there's a feeling that something's trying to hold you down, and that's why people get so scared. It's not comical at all, but it's, I guess you could say, funny to say that the more you fight it, the more of a fright people get the first time. So what's my advice to you? That once you've sorted your belief system out and you've sat down and you've realized, okay, I know what this feels like. I've heard Nathan's explanation. There could be pins and needles. There could be auditory hallucinations, strange feelings in the body, a feeling of being locked down, pressure on the chest. Now I can identify those things next time it happens. So that's going to, especially if you're one of those people that I speak to quite often, that this is happening to a few times a night. Do you know people get PTSD from this? And it's just because it's lost knowledge. So what's so incredible is, what I'm suggesting is, you wake up and you realize it's happening, you start to just relax and you're like, okay, there's that feeling, there's that feeling. Oh, that's a new one. And you might get a little bit scared, and then you calm down again, and then you fight really hard, maybe because you're still not ready to release into this. And then you relax and you're like, oh, and then it starts to subside, and suddenly your hand lifts and you're awake. Or like I used to be, sitting up in bed. And 2 or 3 times after this process, remembering all the steps that I've told you, reminding yourself that you're completely safe, I assure you that you are going to be a lot safer, feel less traumatized, and it's going to start happening less. So what are the things you could do? I mean, to me, what we've discussed is far more important. I know that most people, I was watching some videos, just interested in what people say about this before I were to share what I do with it. Most people, I noticed interesting advice about trying to roll onto your side and trying to move your fingers, and that's all really good advice. But I think if what you're being told is to do those things, but without addressing what it is you think is happening to you while you're lying there, I just feel really sorry for someone lying there going, okay, I've watched the video now and move my fingers, move my fingers. And I think we all know it just doesn't work that way. You are going to be very uncomfortable for a few minutes, but it always goes away. Now there's an incredible side to this that we're approaching. If you stay relaxed and you actually realize this isn't so bad, this is just an altered state, you could use the doorway. There's 2 things that could happen to the doorway. One is you're so glad it's over and you start relaxing and you fall asleep and you switch into the unconscious. Or you decide to keep your mind awake. And as your body locks down, you suddenly realize that you are free of your physical vehicle and you can float up, fly away, and go and explore. What a feeling. I would say to this day that it is the single greatest thing that I've ever experienced. The feeling of going through your roof and up above. I had an experience about 2 months ago. I live at the tip of Africa and I was up above Table Mountain looking down at the sea, and so I'm quite scared of heights, which is so silly because I know there's no way I can fall from there, but getting higher and higher and higher, and the adrenaline and just being like, oh, I'm out, what can I do now, and going to play, and the creatures that you meet. And in that specific experience, I went flying through the mountain to see what it would be like. But that's all conversations and stories for another day. So you could use this doorway to fall asleep again, and then this video has done its job, and you could log off because you're not so scarred anymore. And if it happens, you've realized it's nothing that you need to worry about. But you could decide, wow, what reason would this be coming into my life? Why would this be happening to me over and over and over? You can either decide that this is a completely random, terrible thing that's happened to you and you're just lucky that you have the internet and you've got some information. Or you could consider the fact that nothing happens by accident and that your soul has called you to address this thing. And this is perhaps one of the first really big non-physical things that has ever happened to you. And it has forced you to go and investigate and study and find out someone who can guide you. Why? Because it's calling you to open up a spiritual gift, and one that we are all capable of tapping into. What is that gift? The gift to be a human being who knows that they are not their body. The gift to go to other realities and dimensions. The gift to go to other timelines. And as I said, it could rattle your belief system a little bit. I don't need you to believe me right now. You can experience it for yourself. So essentially what I'm telling you is that there are a lot of us, hundreds and thousands of people, I would guess, that consciously do this. I know I've been a member of a forum since about 20 years, where there's, I think, 50,000 people on the forum where they share tips and etc. from about essentially what's called astral traveling, beyond physical travel. So that leaves us in a really exciting place, that now that you know that you're safe, what if you want to explore this? Well, I highly suggest it. I suggest that it could be life-changing. So, just to summarize, sleep projection is a doorway between the physical and the non-physical. It is when your body locks down so that you may go and explore. Most people are unconscious during this time, but accidentally, or by a call of your soul, or by investigation, you have taught yourself accidentally to do this, to stay awake while your body falls asleep, and to be aware now for the first time of what is going on beyond the veil. Wow, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So I'm not going to talk too much about the rest. I'm going to focus very much on sleep projection, sleep paralysis, just for this video. I hope it was helpful. If this is something that has ignited you, there are many steps to it, and it can take quite a bit of practice. But if it is already happening to you and you've been called to go and explore other dimensions and worlds, I'd be happy to help, and I'd be happy to try and guide you in some way. I wish you strength, and I wish you bravery. I wish you spiritual courage, and I wish you that burning desire to investigate what is beyond what you see around you. Your soul is calling you, and I want you to answer. And I want to assure you for the last time that there is absolutely nothing that can happen to you beyond developing a negative belief or idea that could scare you. That doorway is crossed every single night. And if you would like to teach yourself to cross it awake, the possibilities are absolutely endless. Rest well.